Hi, everybody. This is Miranda here with the amazing Kim Knight for another Starting a Counseling Practice series. We're so excited to have Kim here sharing her journey of starting a private practice. Hey, Kim.
Hi, Miranda. Hey.
As always, if you want to check Kim out, we'll share this again at the end, but truth, the letter B, toldcounseling.com, if you want to kind of follow along and scope her out while you're listening to her story. All right, so we're just going to jump in. So, Kim, tell me about when you knew you wanted to be a counselor or a therapist.
Okay. So, I think that I finally made that decision while I was a pharmaceutical rep. I was actually a pharmaceutical rep for about 8 years, and I was actually promoting psychiatric drugs to psychiatrists.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time in the hospitals, on the unit, and working with psychiatrists. And the product that I was promoting was treating depression and treating anxiety
Mm-hmm.
and things of that nature. And it really intrigued me. And I really took a huge interest in what was going on with the patients at that time, I'm going to call them. What was going on with the patients, and what was it that, I really wanted to connect and understand what it was that they were experiencing. So I actually started off by becoming a life coach, and which was very good because I'd always been in the helping profession or wanting to help, some kind of healthcare profession I always had been in. And life coaching was the first step for me. I kind of did it backwards. And then in working with clients through life coaching, I realized that I wanted to be able to go deeper, and I wanted to understand a lot more about their emotions and their feelings, and wanted more tools in order to help them. So I ended up going back to school, and I became a mental health counselor. And I did that while I was a pharmaceutical rep. So I was in school working full time, and decided then that this was the right path for me. And it took about 3 years, and I did my internship on the psychiatric unit, and I haven't looked back since.
I love that. It's so interesting too. I think a lot of people sometimes have ideas about life coaches or what have you, like for good or for bad, which is really unfortunate. But that place of it's a sign that you want to get to know people and get to know them deeper. And that, it's very clear to me, like you understood where the limit was and you realized, ooh, I don't like this limit. I want to go deeper and I want to understand more. And so I love that it was a stepping stone. I think a lot of people get there through nonprofits and working as paraprofessionals, and we don't judge that, right? We don't judge that you went to work for a nonprofit as a paraprofessional and got some training and then went, yeah, I really want to be a therapist. But I think sometimes there are people who judge people who come in through the life coaching door. And I'm just on record as saying, I think that's silly. I think that's silly and judgy, and we need to give it up and realize that there's so many ways to come to a way of helping people. Just like it's okay for people to come the therapy route and then realize, wow, what I really want to do is more coaching oriented, and here's why. And this is why this is a good fit for me personally and my clients. So wherever we go, it's totally good. Right.
Right.
All right. So you just flew through grad school, realistically, to go through in 3 years while you're working full time and to get all your stuff going. I mean, you're clearly very driven and focused. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was a full-time student working a full-time job, and it was super stressful because I was also a full-time mom and a full-time wife. So I had my moments where it was just, very, very stressful. But I have to say I enjoyed every moment of the schooling, of the program that I was in. And, when you know that you're doing something that you're supposed to be doing, it just makes things that much easier to get through. And, while there were moments where my anxiety level was through the roof, I pretty much, it wasn't going to stop me from finishing what I had started. And I was so looking for, because I knew I wanted to have my own practice. That was like the driving thing that I was working towards, was getting my own practice. I really didn't have a desire to work for an agency, didn't have a desire to do any kind of work other than having my own business. Because on top of that, prior to many moons ago, I got my MBA. So I always had this entrepreneurial spirit and always had this business thing about me that I knew I needed to serve in order to totally achieve what I needed to achieve. So private practice was just the best choice for me.
Perfect. And then I know we've heard kind of both sides of the coin of how whether it's faculty or classmates respond to someone who is driven and business oriented and someone who has the private practice focus. Did your program support and encourage that and like give you like a, yeah, you can do it, atta girl? Did they say like, no, you shouldn't go into private practice? Or was it just something that just was unspoken? Like it was neither here nor there?
I think it was, my cohort was very small. So there were about 10 of us, but they were all younger than me. So I think that our goals were a little different. And I think I was a little bit more of I've been in the workforce for a very long time, and I've kind of been there, done that kind of thing. So I think where we were in our lives were very different. And in fact, a lot of the people in my cohort didn't even pursue counseling. Almost all of them are doing something different. Whereas I knew that this was what I wanted, and the professors that I had really encouraged me to pursue. In fact, they wanted me to go on to do my PhD. I said, absolutely not. I'm so over the school thing. I'm done. I'm not doing that. But they encouraged me. They knew that I wanted to practice, and they were very supportive and thought that it would be a really positive thing for me to do.
Wonderful. And so at what point, obviously you went through the licensure process from the point that you graduated and the point that you were independently licensed. Tell me about that.
Okay, so I was very fortunate, and this also just goes to show you how when you know you're doing the right thing. I had a very dear friend that I went to college with, and we were like the best of friends. And over the years, we lost touch. But she was a social worker, and we reconnected about 3 months before I started grad school. We reconnected, and it turned out that she was a tenured professor at Long Island University, and she also had a private practice that she had built for about 7 years. And she told me, she said, listen, when it's time for you to do your internship, you can come work under me and get hours towards your licensure. I was like, oh my goodness, that would be so wonderful, because it was literally like 5 minutes from my house. Because we ended up somehow living in the same neighborhood. It was just crazy the way everything kind of happened. And that's what I did. So in addition to working an internship at the hospital, I also did some private things in her private practice, and she became one of my supervisors. So once the internship was done and I graduated, I had to get the 3,000 hours towards licensure for New York State. That's what you have to do. And I worked under her. I put in a lot of hours after work when I was a pharmaceutical rep, which was fine because I was able to start like 3 or 4 in the afternoon and work into the evening, which was when most people wanted hours anyway. And between that and administrative hours, I was able to get my stuff done within about 2.5 3 years.
Nice. You just blew through.
Yeah, I did. Yep. I was so focused. It was just, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So there was no stopping me. And it just, the more I went towards it, the more things kind of lined up for it to happen.
And like you keep kind of referencing, it's meant to be. Like where like this is my purpose on this planet, and all of these things are aligning to support that purpose. And sometimes we can't clearly see it in the moment. And it sounds like there was a lot of like moments where you could really see it. Like I can see a lot of things in retrospect where I'm like, oh my gosh, like how cool is it that, like I worked as an insurance agent when I was going through grad school, and the person who was the insurance agent for the nonprofit wrote me a stunning letter of recommendation that got me into the nonprofit so that I could get paid while I was going to school and go straight into my internship. You know, even though I had no experience, like I was totally like hadn't really done a lot of human service work, like he was able to like ease that transition and, you know, just make that process. Like who would have thought that like somehow you're supposed to be working at this insurance company and that's going to open the door? Bizarre.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that does happen, that sometimes we do recognize it in hindsight or in retrospect. Although there were moments, I mean, when things would happen, I would say, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. This is meant to be. But there were times when I would forget that because there were stressful moments, you know, and so you kind of forget sometimes.
Yep.
But eventually, you know, once, as you go on, you do remember and say, oh my goodness, this is where I'm supposed to be. And that's why things worked out the way they did. So, because a lot of my classmates, part of the challenge was them finding work that they could work towards their licensure, be paid, and still be able to support themselves. So it became a very big challenge for them. And, you know, some of them, you know, they were younger, so some of them were just having children. Some of them were just getting married. Some of them were still living at home. But they were at a point where they wanted to really be independent and just kind of do their own thing and support themselves. And they found that it was very difficult to find a place where they could do that and get work towards their hours.
Yeah, it can be really hard. And I think, you know, you mentioned the friendship, connections and networking. And that is something that I've seen some younger people who are just really, really good with that, going out and getting to know people in their community, making relationships, creating connections. I don't want to say making a name for themselves because that just sounds like sort of like weird, but like, yeah, you need to make a name for yourself, even as a student, even as a potential therapist. And when people do that and they make those relationships and connections, then that's where so many more opportunities open up, things that aren't listed on Craigslist, that aren't being posted publicly, that you'd never know about. And I don't know how many students I've talked to, just hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, who said, well, as soon as I graduate, I'll start doing blank. As soon as I'm done with that, as soon as I get all my hours, then I'll start doing this or what have you. And it's like, no, you got to start at the beginning. Like this is the beginning point. I think the other thing that I heard you say, which is so powerful, and just an idea for any of you guys who are listening, start a little journal, just a little place to write down those moments when you know, when like it's confirmed for you. And that way, when you're having just a shitty day and you're like having a moment and like things don't seem right, go back to that because it's going to do a couple things. It's going to be some confirmation for you, and it also might help you realign. So like sometimes we're going along the path, and it's not that we're on the wrong path. It's just it's gotten like pointed in a funky direction.
Right.
It's not quite right. And we need to like realign to go like, ooh, when I was going in this direction, it felt really good and it felt really on target. And now I started heading here and it feels really off. And I'm just ready to throw in the towel and just say, screw it. I don't want to do this, any of this.
Or sometimes we have to recognize that there are lessons that we need to learn along the way as well. So those bumps in the road are sometimes just opportunities for us to grow and develop. You know, it's not always going to be a straight path, and it's not going to be an easy path. But if we're able to look at the challenges and see in what ways we can become better, either as professionals or as individuals or what have you, then, it makes it that much easier to move through the bumps in the road. So
Exactly.
I think all of it is about, learning and growing, and sometimes, there are growing pains.
Yeah.
And, but embracing it as such allows you to move through it in a way that you don't give up.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So now you 2.5 years, gained your hours, took your licensing exams, got that done, and now you're at the point of opening up your private practice. Tell me about that place. How did that start to come to be? Did you just start in the office where your friend was? Did you go immediately out and get office space? Like, tell me about the starting process.
Okay, so I was working with her throughout my licensure. I took my exam, and initially, I was kind of working for her, so she was paying me while I was doing my hours. And then she told me, she said, well, once you get your license, then you have to be on your own. So, but what I can do is you can stay here and you'll just pay rent. And I said, oh my goodness. Well, that worked out because the clients that I was set up with through my internship, I was able to, they were my first clients when I opened up my practice. So for them, it didn't seem much different because I was, they were still coming to see me every week or every other week. But on the business side, it was different because now I had to establish myself. I did a sole proprietorship. So, and get my own, get the insurance in place, set up the CAQH. I mean, I had to do all of that stuff, NPI number, all of that. Got my license number, and so, but my clients never knew that all of that was going on. For them, it just seemed like business as usual.
Yeah, they just signed a new form, and they're like, okay, new form, congratulations.
Exactly. I mean, I told them I was now on my own, and that before that, there was somebody else that was signing the things, and now it's me, and many of them, the only issue was there was some, because that was insurance, because my friend, she does a lot of insurance, which in some ways was good because the referrals were very constant and consistent. So it allowed me to keep a good number of people on my caseload throughout my internship. But then when I moved over and I wasn't on any panels yet, there were some that couldn't afford to continue to see me, so which was fine. So I think I had about 15 clients at that time, and I think about half of them ended up staying. So I started out when I had my own practice with about 7 or 8 clients.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what was that process like to have a shift? Like you mentioned, there's a process in getting on panels before most panels, not all, but most panels want a couple years of licensed experience. Some panels are closed to new NPI numbers and all these different things. So even if your whole goal is like, yes, I want insurance practice, there's a time lag between you can do that. And so what was it like to kind of be in that time lag and see a shift in how you were working, from that standpoint of there's not just this random steady referral of people coming in. Okay, how am I going to market myself? How am I going to get known? How does this feel to like take full fee payment, take payment versus just billing insurance? What was that transition like for you?
So, so the fortunate piece for me was that I was still working full time. So I did have that to kind of help me transition, because I knew initially I wasn't going to have the number of clients that I needed in order to leave my full-time job. So I didn't have that option in the very beginning. But what I did was, so there are a number of things going on. So here I am, a new clinician, and I'm having doubts about myself and my skills, because I'm like, oh boy, I have my license, have my NPI, I have my business, and now I'm on my own. and I don't necessarily have, you know, that supervisor relationship to kind of fall back on. Initially, it was a big transition for me, mindset and everything, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these people are really coming to see me now. Like, they're coming to see me, and I'm going to be the one that has to help them. And in the beginning, it was so overwhelming. And I said to myself, okay, Kim, you got to get it together. It's a good sign that they keep coming back. So if they keep coming back, then chances are you're doing something right.
Yeah.
So the fee thing was a big thing for me, because these were people who were used to using insurance. They were only paying a copay. And I knew that a really high fee for them would be a challenge, because it wasn't something that they came to counseling thinking about. So I did come down on my feet initially so that I could keep them as clients, allow them an opportunity to adjust to paying, you know, out of pocket, and allowed me to keep some income coming in. And so I did go with the lower fee for those that had transitioned from my internship. But anybody new from that point, I knew I was going to charge them the higher fee. And what I did was I found 2 panels that pay the most, and they were open, and I applied to get on those 2 panels. And that process took about 3 months. I think I applied in January, and by March, I was on them. And those are still the only 2 panels that I'm on. I haven't gone on to any other panels. So now my practice is those 2 insurance panels plus my private pay, my self-pay.
And this is, I see a lot of therapists, they don't necessarily have a way to find out what other panels are paying. You know, if you don't have a good friend, you already had insider knowledge based on where you were at. So even, you know, the contracts say we're not allowed to share what our rates are or what have you, but you just knew. But I see a lot of people just go, okay, I just need to get on any panel. And so they get on, you know, 15 panels, 20 panels, and then not just do some of them not reimburse really well, but there's different requirements and different little caveats and all these different things that you have to mentally put in your mind and learn what that process looks like, and look at have a sense of oh, they're going to do that. That's just what Blue Cross does. Or, oh, that's just a weird thing about TRICARE. You got to, you know, ABCD. So limiting it like that and having just 2 things to learn, I think was also really smart from the administrative side of things.
Absolutely. It helped tremendously, because I knew that, in fact, and they weren't even both at the same time. So I actually started with one first, and then the other one came about 2 months later. So I was able to focus on only one, understand that process, get the income coming in, where and the billing. I use Simple Practice, so the billing is, you know, it's just so simple. You know, once you get the client in there and you put their information in, you just click the button and it goes. And then I signed up for the electronic funds, so the money goes into my bank account. So it's just, you know, it's like magic.
Maybe it should be called Magic Practice instead of Simple Practice.
Exactly. So, you know, that made the process easier. You know, I hear a lot of colleagues who are concerned about billing and how it takes so long to get paid, and how, you know, when there are problems, how it takes so long to get in touch with people. But I can say from my experience, that part was really smooth for me. I just followed the instructions and set up Simple Practice and set it up right. And the first time, for the electronic funds, it took a little time, but in between that time, I was getting checks. And I would pay, you know, it didn't take that long, maybe 7 to 10 days. I was getting, you know, what I submitted, getting paid for it. So I didn't have those challenges that I hear others talk about, and I'm thankful for that.
Yes, I think you chose wisely, and which panels. And then second, you set up a really good process, right? Where it was easy and you could do it right. Because if you wait 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and then start submitting stuff, it creates a whole nother set of issues for sure.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So tell me about the process of starting to like market yourself and become known in the community. Tell me about that.
Okay. So being a pharmaceutical rep has helped me tremendously because not only did I know some psychiatrists, but also I understood the language of the profession, the medical professionals. So when it was time for me to market myself, I knew out the gate that for primary care that this was a huge benefit to them because they're the ones that actually are on the front lines when the patients are in front of them. They're unloading on them. They are depressed in front of them. They are anxious in front of them. And oftentimes they are the first ones, if they're going to prescribe medication, they do it there for their patients right there. When they come for maybe a physical, they'll walk out with antidepressant or anti-anxiety medicine.
Or antipsychotics, you know.
Antipsychotic, in some cases.
This one's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew, but I also knew that they're not as equipped to handle the emotions that are being dumped upon them, and that they like to be able to have somebody that they can turn their patient over to and say, listen, I think you need to get some counseling, or I think you should look at going for therapy. Here's somebody in the area. I know them, and I know that they do good work. And that's really how the practice, because I'm in a practice with other therapists as well. It's not a group practice. We all just rent space, but we all have relationships with primary care doctors in the area. So, you know, you go in, you introduce yourself, you let them know that you're in the area and what services you provide. Sometimes you can bring donuts or cookies or something just to kind of break the ice and start the relationship. And it's not always even the doctors that will refer. It can be the front desk person, because once you tell them you're a therapist, oh my gosh, then they start telling you their whole life story, or how their family members, or they know somebody who could benefit, and you leave your card, and before you know it, you're getting the calls. And once they know that you work well with their patients, they refer over and over and over again. So you become like their go-to person. If you want to take it a step further, you can even offer to do an in-service for the staff on what depression is, on what anxiety is, and how it looks in people, and how you can support them, because they need education as well. And you really establish yourself as an expert and let them know that, you know, there's good help out there. And once you build those relationships, they will call you when they have the client. And psychology today has been wonderful to me. I get a lot of referrals to psychology today. I feel I set up my profile in such a way that really speaks to the needs of people. Although I'm looking at, you know, niching more, because that's been my challenge this whole time, is finding my niche. But even without the niche right now, I still get calls from psychology today, and I get it. Sometimes I've gotten at most 4 in 1 week, and then then there's some weeks where you don't get any, but it's been very consistent, and it definitely paid for itself within the first month. No question about it.
And psychology today is so hit and miss, because it depends on specialty and how many other therapists are in your area and all these other kinds of things. So there's definitely something to look at. So sometimes I hear people go, why does psychology today work for everybody else, but it doesn't work for me? Well, sometimes it's the way you've worded your profile, but it also might be that you're competing with 1,000 other therapists in your zip code.
That's
so just
true.
for you guys watching, like it sort of depends on your area.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Awesome. What do you think has been like the biggest like stumbling block struggle that you've had, and how did you overcome it?
I think initially for me, the there were several, but one of the challenges was improving my confidence level as a therapist. You know, I was still very new, very green, and you feel, at least for me, I felt this overwhelming responsibility to do well with my clients. And, you know, that self-talk that goes on sometimes, they're like, oh, you know, I hope I'm doing the right thing. And there's so many things, at least for me, I was unsure about. But I really continued to push through that by reading, by asking questions from colleagues, by trusting myself, and realizing that I don't always have to have the answer. I don't always have to be the one that knows exactly what my clients need. That me being present with them and me being there with them as an honest listener, as an honest, you know, creating that safe space is so important, and it's a real thing that sometimes really gets things going, and you just have to be open to the process. So for me, it was a confidence thing, which I am pretty much over now because I think I've seen enough clients to know that there are some that are ready and some that are not, and I have to be okay with that. From the business side, I think the biggest challenge for me, I was coming into this at a time in my life where my family had a major financial setback, and being able to have a profitable practice was really important for me, because at one point I was the breadwinner in the family, and making that transition from leaving my full-time job to going into the private practice was a really challenging decision to make. But I had to do it. I really had no choice in the matter. I knew that I could do it. I was just hoping that I would do it in the right amount of time, because for me, I had this time clock ticking in my head. Oh my gosh, I have to have it done. I have to have this amount of money by this amount of time, and you know that stress factor was really huge for me. So those two things, I think, were my biggest obstacles, and how I overcame the finance piece. I just had faith in knowing that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. I worked my business. You know, I took every referral seriously. I would do the what was it called? The speech when we do the introduction,
the consultation script.
Yes, I was the consultation script. I worked the mess out of that thing. Okay,
Kim actually happens to be one of our boot campers, and so one of the things that we give people in business school boot camp is like what to say when somebody calls for the first time. Lots of other cool things, but that's what she's referring to. As other people are like, "What are you talking about? The consultation script?
Okay,
where do I get that?"
Yes, the consultation script. I worked the mess out of that thing and used it on every call, and I put myself out there, and I just built it up. I built it up, and now I'm here today. I have 3 locations that I work out of, which works for me because I'll get kind of bored, and therapy, you know, doing therapy can be very isolating sometimes. So it works for me where the place where I started my internship, I'm there 1.5 days a week. Then I have another location, which is about 30 minutes away with a different type of population. And there I pay per client. So it's nice because if I don't see any clients, then I don't pay. And then I share space with a psychiatrist 1 day a week. And I pay rent to him on a monthly basis. So people say, oh, how do you do 3 locations? For me, it works because I look forward to being somewhere different and dealing with different types of clients. So it keeps the variety, it keeps things going. And for me, it works. And I've been able to build it from there. So I work 4 days a week.
I love it. I love it. Everybody, we're back. We had a little technical snafu, and right in the middle of Kim, like, just putting down her amazing knowledge and resources and advice for you guys. So we're going to try that again. what is your like number one piece of advice to people starting a counseling practice or people who are kind of in the middle of it, but like sort of struggling?
Okay, so the number one advice is, I would say, do not give up, whatever you do. If you believe and you know without a doubt that this is something that you are supposed to be doing, even when it gets difficult or it seems like it's not going to happen for you, I encourage people to push through that, because sometimes it takes a lot of patience, but I think more than anything, it takes persistence. And you have to stick with it so that you can experience what it is that you're trying to achieve. Utilize all resources that you have available to you. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Try to surround yourself with people. I know this community has been very good, at least for me, when it comes to learning, when it comes to asking questions and getting responses, hearing from other people and seeing what they've done and what's worked and what hasn't worked has been of tremendous value to me. And that has really helped to move me forward and get to the point where I am today. So I encourage people to not do this alone. This is not a journey that you can take by yourself. You really do need support, and you really do need to not be afraid to ask questions and tap into those things that are available that can help make the journey a little bit easier, or at least help you to get through those difficult times, because there are going
the freak out moments, right?
Yeah, there are plenty. There are plenty.
Yeah. But and when you say this community, what community are you referring to?
The boot camp community. The boot camp community has been tremendous. And I mean, there are other groups online as well, but the boot camp community has been really helpful with providing valuable information and tools that are actually applicable immediately, things that you can implement right away. I think mindset is huge. I mean, this is something that we try to encourage our clients. I always say therapists are the worst clients, because sometimes we have to remind ourselves of the things that we tell our clients all the time. And mindset is a huge thing. You have to really be in touch with your mindset and recognize what areas you need to work on, so that, because without the proper mindset, those obstacles are going to become barriers, and you don't want that to happen. You want to push through and change whatever mindset you need to, so that when those things do present itself that are a little bit challenging, that you know that you have the right way of thinking in order to get through it.
I love it. I love it. I know that you've mentioned boot camp a couple of times, like sort of like randomly, where I'm like, oh wait, no one else knows what we're talking about. It's like this little secret society that we have. What do you think is the biggest tangible change that's happened from being in boot camp, whether it's number of clients, income, mindset? Like, what is the tangible stuff that has shifted for you that you can specifically attribute to, if I hadn't done this, I think I would have been stuck? Like, was there anything like that for you?
I think the growth of the practice overall, I think I can say that boot camp helped with that specifically. So, and in growth of the practice, I mean the number of clients, I mean the income. I think that has really helped. Honestly, I haven't even completed all of boot camp, and
it's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot, and I'm thankful though that I have that to go to when I need it, and that I'm able to utilize those tools right away. There were certain exercises that are done in the different points and different modules, and those have been very helpful and enlightening, and have given me a jump start in terms of what I need to do to get the practice up and running in the right way. So, but I'm also looking forward to going through the other modules little by little, because I have to do things piece by piece, and it takes me time to digest things because I'm the type of person I like to understand everything, which is good and bad.
Yep.
But aside from that, I'm so grateful that I have that in my arsenal when it comes to making my practice even better and growing it even more. So I thank you and Kelly for that, because without it, I probably would still be stuck wondering what the next steps are. So I think that, that's been extremely helpful.
Awesome. Awesome. And I'll just ask this question because I would be silly not to. If people are sort of like unsure as to whether boot camp could be beneficial for them, what do you think is like the number one question they should ask, or what's the number one piece of advice that you'd give someone who's kind of on the fence about, do I invest in my private practice, whether it's boot camp or something else? Like, does it really make sense? Because it's really scary when your business is kind of at a certain point. The idea of investing anything else into it, time, money, energy, anything, is like super terrifying, because it's kind of a question of like, what if I'm just like a money pit, like a house where it's like, oh, I bought this house and it was one thing after another, and like, what's the point where you just go done,
Yeah.
How do you figure out, like, whether it's boot camp or something else, like, when does it make sense to reach out and invest and put some energy into something? And when do you have to say, like, no, I shouldn't be doing that?
Well, I was the perfect person that did try to get involved in everything and be a part of everything, because everything just seems so relevant. Oh my God, I need this now. I need that now. And it just became too much. So I really had to take a step back and evaluate those things that really connected with me and that really spoke to what it was I was trying to achieve. And, there are a lot of free trainings that you all had that I was able to listen to prior to joining boot camp. And those really spoke to me and what the challenges were that I was experiencing at that time. And also, in terms of the goals that I wanted to achieve for myself in my practice, there was just a connection that I felt from the beginning, that I knew that this was an investment that I was ready to make. And I think that, there were moments in making the decision that I wasn't sure. And I'm like, do I do it now? Do I do it later? Do I do it now? And then you just reach a point where you say, you know what? I'm going to commit to this. This is what I think is going to help me. And I know that if I work it, then it will work for me. And it's not something that I'm going to be able to just invest in and not put something into it. Like, I'm going to have to do the work if I want my business to grow. So once I was able to recognize that, now I'm able to really pick and choose which programs or what kind of support I'm going to get or buy into.
I love it. Okay. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else we didn't cover. It feels so weird that like we like sort of hip hopped it or what have you, but Kim Knight in like the Long Island area. Tell me what specific city are you in?
I'm in I'm in Nassau County and Suffolk County in Long Island, New York. So it's outside of the 5 boroughs. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, Nassau and Suffolk County I cover.
If you're like me and I'm just like, I have no idea. I just know it's like
people
over
from
there.
New York will know. They'll understand.
Exactly.
I'm not in the city, but I'm like 2 towns away from the city.
Okay, perfect. And Truth, the letter B, tollcounseling.com if you want to learn more about the amazing Kim Knight. And I know, so cool. And what kind of clients? I know you said you're still sort of struggling with the niche. You got some area work to do in the boot camp modules in that area. But what kind of clients do you really resonate with, and do you have room for in your practice right now?
Well, right now I'd see mostly women. I have quite a few trauma focused clients where their relationships are being by the trauma. So I'm doing a lot of work around that. And lately it's interesting divorce and helping them to claim their independence and the new status has been something that I've been that I've been the internet connection is unstable. I'm getting a message. So hopefully
it was being sort of weird. So I'm going to repeat what I
saw your face. I saw your face and I said, uh-oh, something's going on here.
Amy going like, oh, I'm going to have to figure this out. So I think what Kim was saying, because I've gotten pretty good at translating internet ridiculousness, is that she's a room in her practice. She has a real passion for women who are going through deep transitions, whether it's healing from something specifically traumatic or even going through a transition like divorce, which can be traumatic or empowering, depending on your mindset, right? And so she has some room there, and she has a couple different locations. And then you said you have some people that you work with as well, so you're a good resource if for some reason someone's not the right fit for you. You have some other people in your office that you can hook people up, and you can be a great resource for people. Yeah?
Sure do. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Kim, for hanging out and spending time and sharing your journey.
Thank you for everything. Yes, and thank you for this opportunity. Anything to help others, I'm so open. So thank you.
Awesome. All right. Bye, guys, in internet land. Have a great day and go start that counseling practice and persist. Right, Kim?
Absolutely.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Did you enjoy that Starting a Counseling Practice podcast? Well, make sure and subscribe to us on iTunes or get on our newsletter or do whatever you need to do so that you can get access to other inspiring content. If this didn't inspire you to make a change, then stop listening. Don't waste your time with it. But if we can help you make real change, and if this gets you fired up, then hey, we'll help you. We'll get you hooked in. So just subscribe. Bye, guys.